Alrighty, welcome everybody. So this is yet another live stream on Locked In, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is essentially a new start to a build series that we're doing. That's gonna be me and my buddy Mario. I'm basically wanting to do a version 2 of the steel bike build that you may or may not have seen on the channel that I call the Ultimate Steel Gravel Bike Build. Gravel has changed quite a bit since when I started, and Mario getting into it recently, as far as geometry, tire sizes, compatibility, things like that. So if you haven't watched that video, I kind of explained that already. But this is essentially the first video to kind of pull back the curtains from what the experience is like going to a custom frame builder. A lot of people know that there are custom steel frame sets out there from people that have essentially a turnkey bike that they use and slightly modify for you. Alan from Varco Cycles that we'll be discussing with today, he does it all. He's a one-man show currently, but he can do pretty much, anything we're going to be discussing as far as features or options that I want to inspire you guys to either work with him directly, or if you have a local frame builder that you can think outside of the box of just maybe something they already create, to tailor something to be truly custom in every sense of the word, as far as geometry, tubing, mounts, and much, much more. So we're going to get into that today. So I hope you guys can enjoy it. Please join the chat. We will have an open section of communication near the end of this to discuss any questions directly for us, me or Mario, and for Alan. Obviously, if you guys have any questions as far as maybe you're wanting to become a frame builder, you're building your first frame, or just have questions about making a custom frame or working with somebody. Obviously, with COVID and the pandemic going on right now, doing remote sessions like this is kind of how it's going to work no matter which way you go. So hopefully this is a fun experience for everybody involved, and thank you for joining the chat. So I'd like to introduce Alan from Varco Cycles. Hello, Alan.
How's it going?
Hey, what's up?
So everybody, I'm going to have links for Alan's Instagram and website in the description below, so you can follow him on Instagram and see his current builds that he's been doing if you haven't already seen mine. So I'd like, Alan, you to give everybody just a basic history who maybe doesn't know anything about you or hasn't seen the original series. So you will be repeating yourself on camera a little bit,
Sure.
But we'd love to hear kind of your background, where you started and why, and where you're kind of at today.
All right. Well, I started riding BMX bikes when I was like 12 or 13, racing, did all over New York State and stuff like that. Did some nationals and all that. So I was into bikes from a pretty young age, always kind of a DIY guy. I remember carving up my own seat post clamp in my dad's garage and trashing all his Dremel tool bits and stuff like that. But so later became a CNC programmer, and I worked for Serrata for a little while. Serrata, if you don't know, built custom frames for 42 years maybe in upstate New York. And they're no longer around. They're around in a different format now. Ben Serrata builds his own stuff. But anyways, so a few years after that, I was looking for a track frame, and I'm 6'2" and like real long in the torso. So all track frames are completely opposite of that. So I wound up building myself something that was a little longer and could clear a 32 tire, because I pretty much feel every bike should be able to be ridden off-road. Track bike or not, I guess. I know we're doing track lacrosse now, but I think that would be pretty fun. But anyways, so, I just started building lug frames with real simple fixturing, and I built 6 or 7 frames with lugs, and then knew that I had to kind of leave that world, gain some like adjustability in size, I guess, some different angles that aren't possible using lugs, and learn how to fillet braze. So I, just fillet brazed everything I had lying around together until I could confidently build a frame. And I built my dad an all-road frame, and my dad is 6'5" and like 240 pounds. So he needed, he'd be a good test subject.
Is that what you told him?
Yeah, it's my 70-something-year-old dad. Put him on my first frame that may or may not work. I don't know. But don't rest assured, I put it through my own BMX style test before that. So I had certainly jumped it off plenty of curbs, and I was living in Minnesota at the time. So took it to some local mountain bike single track trails and,
Nice.
kind of sent it through that, and shit, it held together. So had it painted, and my dad came out that summer and we took it for a ride, and it was sweet. I was able to build a frame for a guy that got me into bicycles in general. So
yeah, so I got the article pulled up right here, guys, so we can kind of look through a little bit of the build. Obviously, this is going to be linked in the description below for varcocycles.com. So you can see his, your bike CAD process here. This, I one day was a little bored, not going to lie, and I downloaded bike CAD, and oh my God, I was just like, oh yeah, I can input some stuff and maybe figure this out. It was just like, nope, it looked like a clown bike at the end. And I was like, I thought this would be good, but yeah.
I could
yeah, I could. Yeah, exactly. So it is, if anybody wants to be frustrated or bored one day and you want to just really try to really respect what it takes to do all that, download bike CAD. It's free. And then try to make something that looks somewhat rideable based on whatever loose numbers you have here. So so like I said, all these blog posts are going to be on his website. Again, if you guys haven't seen, I will be adding that playlist in the links below from that build series, because yes, what I'm now renaming is going to be our all road build we did together. That was lugged. So this is definitely where version 2, doing Philip brazing, like you said, all the things that you've kind of learned and progressed since we've worked together last, really opens up this frame set, and possibilities here for me and what I've been really dreaming about. So I'll turn this off and we'll get a little bit into that.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know lugs, they kind of hold the joint angle, and they're limited to plus or minus 3 degrees or so. Well, that's fine if you're doing road geometry, because all lugs, let's face it, it's an old style of construction. So all lugs kind of hold to that similar road proportion, and you can get a cross bike out of them. You can get a gravel bike out of them. Maybe you can really cut the lugs and braze them back together and kind of get them a little bit even more. But I mean, at that point, you're doing so much work. Just open it up, learn how to Philip braze was what my process was. I just figured I was about to take a block of steel, right, and machine a lug set on a 5-axis mill, and I'm just just get a goddamn
$1,000 lug set. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
get the torch and just learn the right way. So if I didn't just move, I'd have this nice little. I basically took a seat tube, Philip brazed a top tube to it, and then one seat stay off of it, and then I brought it to my job there. I stuck it in a vise, and I put this long bar on it, and I'm trying to break that joint. And I had to have this 250-pound guy helping me out, holding the bench down, and I could not break that joint. So
that makes us feel good. Okay, awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if I can't break that with that much leverage, there's no way a bike is going to fail. I mean,
sure.
It's all triangulated. So
right. Cool. So I think initially, just for everybody, and I want to take a moment for everybody in the chat, let us know where you're from, and we'll initially go through a few initial questions before we get into basically the next part of this is going to be things that is kind of the reason why both me and Mario, and I'll let him speak about what he's, we're looking for on what we are currently looking for or unhappy with our current gravel bikes. We've definitely ridden both of them a ton, and we still enjoy them, and they're not bad bikes. But if we're going to go this route, what would we really want to change? And then we'll bust into some of the features that we've been kind of discussing, integrating into this frame set. So I want to say, hey to, I don't know what your name is, but Ride CCX, what's up? And we got one question from Bill and I believe Melissa. Curious about tie. So what's the big change from someone who does a tie? I don't know if Philip braze, if it matters between the two, or what's going to be the big difference as far as you choosing materials or be able to work with either?
Yeah, so tie is only a TIG weldable material. You can't introduce another material and really have it stick. That's the thing with bronze, is what you use to create the actual fillet, and that has some form of bond with steel once everything reaches all these critical temperatures. It's, I don't know how to describe it. It just really, really holds to steel.
Sure.
Where titanium, it wouldn't. Titanium, the heat is really local. So if you were to heat one spot in titanium, it wouldn't necessarily like draw the heat elsewhere, which is kind of what you're doing with a fillet braze. You want to draw the material in between the tubes and then build up a big fillet. So that can't happen in titanium. I'm sure many other people could chime in. It's really, I worked at Serrata and we did carbon and tie, but I really had nothing to do with the actual welding of frames, more to do with the fixturing, mitering, stuff like that. So I really can't answer super technical stuff about titanium, but that would require me to get like a $3,000 welder and make a whole lot of back purging heat sink kind of things where you fill the frame with argon, and that prevents oxidization inside the frame. So, it's another world to learn titanium.
After everybody in the chat right now orders their own Varco custom steel bike, he may be able to do tie after that. So
yeah, with another 2 years of welding experience, maybe on top of that. So
sure, after the wait list. Obviously the wait list. Yeah. All right. So we're going to bust into a little bit of Mario's background. I want you to talk more. So let everybody know, as far as your cycling background, when you started, how you started, and then what's kind of driven you to this point and making you really be interested. Because as far as like years wise riding, it took me a long time to be at this point from like, I really do need a custom bike or a steel bike, especially. So I really love to hear your thought process, because you've been riding for what, 2 years? Okay. Yeah. So you gotta speak up probably a little bit. Everybody in the chat, let him know if it's too quiet and yell at him and he'll talk louder. So
what's up? I'm Mario. I've always ridden a bike like as a kid, on and off, nothing serious. I was turning 30 though. I felt like I was getting old, so I signed up for an Ironman. I'm sure a lot of people do this. So I started getting, I just bought a random bike off of Craigslist, started training. And it's
pretty likely. Yeah, it's a pretty usual story at that point.
That's pretty much how it was. I never learned how to swim. How to swim. Barely made that part. But I did finish the Ironman, so that was cool. So I progressed, from a cheap bike to a lesser, cheaper bike.
It wasn't a full Ironman.
Well, the half Ironman.
Okay, I was gonna say from a full. Bro. Yeah, okay, that's what I was gonna say.
It still felt like 2-3 Ironmans put together for me.
Okay, so you got your better bike after that one.
I went from like a $200 bike to like a little bit like $600-700 bike, another used off of Craigslist, and then I don't know, progressed. I was still scared of dirt until I got a cross bike.
Yep, right.
And then we did a little bit of cross racing. Yeah, that was fun. That was what sparked my dirt interest.
Yeah. If anybody follows me on Instagram, you've seen the cyclocross pictures from last season. Me and Mario raced under the team name Fade Gang, because we had the dual faded Poseidon bike, so we looked real professional.
Oh yeah.
And we actually finished out that season really, really well. Mario's first season, I think second or third, we ended up winning. You got first, and I got, was it second or third? I forgot. No, you got second, I got third. Oh, yeah. Overall in the men's C 31 to 35 category. So we have a podium picture. Unfortunately, I don't have that queued up, but I think that's really where at that point I had a cross bike, but I was just doing the Varco build on like 33s and like riding it around here on like some stuff that was like pretty sketchy on that size of tire. So go ahead. So after cross.
So I wanted bigger tires. I tried putting a 40C in my Specialized Crux. Those are aluminum. Didn't fit. It barely fit, but I wasn't like comfortably. So I got another bike with a little bit bigger clearance. So I knew I was already headed to bigger tires. That was like, I like the squishiness and I liked running low PSI.
Right.
So I went to another bigger tire, and then pretty much right now I'm ended up at a steel, which I use for both road and gravel. And I use a 2.1 on dirt and 35s on the road.
And that's a Surly Midnight Special for anybody who might be asking.
Oh yeah, with the carbon fork, nice
Right.
wheels, and
Yeah, it's so basically you had the Crux and then sold that. Then you got a Salsa Fargo, which is currently almost basically sold. And then the Surly Midnight Special, me and him both were kind of in a phase of the like one bike kind of with multiple parts to switch around. So he ended up getting a killer deal on a Midnight Special. And then he took his Fixation Sparta fork that we ran on the Poseidon, which clears similar tire clearance and everything, swapped that over. And that's like his road and gravel build. So we'll answer a few questions we had here real quick. Alex, there was no UCI requirement where we raced because it wasn't, none of the races we did were UCI. It was just for like the season that we rode. So you could literally, there was a guy in the Menzies one day.
We were wearing Halloween costumes.
That's true. But one guy was on like a PK Ripper, like that he bought, and he like did it in flats and like a spandex tank top. Like no one cared. Like you could ride whatever in any category. And Melissa, so yeah, the Surly Wheel Clear stated a 2.3 front and rear with the stock fork.
Yeah.
The Fixation fork, they actually let you use that as an recommended upgrade. I don't think it'll clear a 2.3 in the front. I've run a 2.2 that probably was closer to a 2.25, but 2.3 would be very close if you want any kind of clearance or mud clearance on there.
I didn't want to run the steel fork because it was really heavy. Really heavy. Granted, it was also uncut. It was like this long, but still, I knew I wanted to keep the carbon fork on there.
Yeah, I think the steel fork on that bike is like 3.5 pounds, and the Fixation is like right at like a pound and like a quarter. So it did lighten the bike up quite a bit. As far as for me, I've been riding cross for a while. That's really what I got the itch a long time ago. Again, when gravel was still kind of its infancy. And so to me, a gravel tire was like a 35 because like 33 was what I raced for cyclocross at that time. And I had an S-Works Crux from an old bike shop I had. And I had a Tarmac road bike. Got rid of the Tarmac and kind of used the Crux as a dual purpose bike. But everything has just really blown up since. And I think that's what's kind of gotten us here. And so for me, a lot of my issues with any bike and why I initially reached out to Alan for the what we're now again renaming the all road build was I needed a custom geo because I'm 5'11" with like 31 on a good day inseam. And so I need like all the top tube, but none of the seat tube. And there were very few frames that I could get at the time that I could afford that were anywhere close to a compact geometry. And so that was initially what brought me to Alan. And I had ridden a few steel bikes and really liked the ride quality. And I wanted to kind of meld this classic lugged look. And still, Alan, I wish I had a picture pulled up ready, but I still don't know how you got that much slope out of the top tube with a lug. I mean, that was like, I don't like when I saw it like in the render, I'm like, how's he going to do that? Like that, but
yeah, they do make lugs that have sloping top tubes, so it's like a 6-degree slope, but like I said, you got ±3 or so I was able to really
push it more,
test the limit of that lug.
Yeah. So and everything's been good since. So I think definitely that's where for anybody who's, I like to call, and I've even told you, you're kind of the same way, he's a schmaldium and I'm a schmedium, and so like we're always in between, or I always get questions on when you're at that height right between two sizes. That's where it gets tough because I need the top tube and the reach and probably the stack from the bigger size, but I need like the seat tube and standard height from the small. So if you have that problem, this is really where, in my eyes, going custom in the long run is worth it because it's going to fit you perfectly. And I use the analogy with people. It's like everyone can go buy a suit, from, a store, but getting it tailored, at a professional, like tailor, that's kind of what like building a steel frame is. It's fit specifically to you. It's not to your leg length where they just hem the bottom and tuck the cuffs. It is completely top to bottom set for you. So if that's somewhat of a problem for you, it's really in the long run, a better option because you're not going to have to be playing this game like we did with you and some other bikes of fit issues. where I have a fit background, and on certain frames for him, he'd have to run a ton of stack, or he'd have to size up and then do zero offset, not have a lot of seat tube showing. So it was really hard. If you looked at your Poseidon versus your Surly, your handlebars and your seat posts are the same height, but everything below that's very different.
Correct.
And so that's really where, again, going custom and doing this from the jump really just kind of saved you in the long run, because you can just order one set of parts, or use what you have and work with like someone like Alan. And he's the wizard of stuff that I don't understand with the geometry of how to make everything work. When we worked together before, I literally sent him the tire size I'm running, the stem length, and my seat setback, and I reused all the parts I had. So it, saved me a lot. So for Alan, let's call it the next section, if I was a new customer and reached out to you, what kind of information are you looking for as far as hard numbers or just information from a client to, start this process?
Yeah, I don't exactly come from a big fit background, so I like to hear what people have ridden in the past and what their opinions are of that. So you had mentioned whatever Specialized you were riding, a Crux or I'm not familiar with Specialized models.
Yeah,
but,
it was a Crux and it was a 56, and Specialized fit me the best that a production frame did at the time that I'd ridden.
Yeah. Yeah. So go from there. And, it's nice to work with someone who kind of has an idea what they want. You obviously had a great idea what you wanted. So, I kind of took based on your dimensions that you gave me and kind of reproportioned that Specialized frame. Now, if someone doesn't really have a clue, then I want to know exactly what model they're riding, what they think about it. I'd like to maybe see a picture of them on the bike, kind of see where their knees are, see where, see if their shoulders are real up or real back, kind of just see that riding position and adjust from there. People can, even themselves, there's Competitive Cyclist has a thing where you answer all these questions. You put in, body dimensions that you would never even really think of if you've never looked at geometry from like a very basic standpoint. And that'll kind of give you an idea of maybe what you might want to ride. And those numbers can come to me and we can go from there also. Or probably I think would be worth going to a shop that does fit and get a proper fit, and then we can build from there.
Yeah, definitely. I think I have done that for friends of mine. Again, having like a fit certified background, I think that was really what I'm going to refit you, because it has been some time. Because getting fitted, and everyone, if you got fitted 5 years ago, those numbers are going to change for better or for worse. So it's something where if you are going to go this route, get a new updated fit. And that means you can take your current bike and go get it professionally fitted, and all those numbers will still translate. Because as far as, and Alan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, all those hard points, saddle height, setback from your crankset, your reach for your handlebars and everything, those are all numbers essentially in space to where you can adapt to.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of make a general bike that meets those points, and then for the individual need, you might tweak here and there. Taller head for a more upright riding position if someone's maybe is more interested in comfort or distance than aerodynamics, and so those are the little maybe a longer rear end for a smoother ride kind of thing. Then from a geometry standpoint, you can I don't know, fill in all the blanks from those maybe 4 or 5 critical dimensions.
Sure. So Mario, have you start? You have your experience, and you've ridden the Surly, 800 miles, 1,000 miles at this
2,000.
point? 2,000. Really? You had that long? Okay.
Dude,
all right.
I rode my bike this year.
All right. Well, there we go. So that's your mileage. So from what you've experienced, because obviously you have the Poseidon and the Crux and everything else, what did you like that this bike has, as far as it can be anything from a ride quality to maybe issues? I know with your Poseidon, you had the toe overlap issue, things like that. So go through all of the good and the bad that you have from yours, just to kind of give insight, because obviously I've done a video on what I'm looking for. So this, for everybody, this would be hopefully the discussion and things to think about that Mario, as a client, he's going to be building essentially the same kind of bike that I am with Alan. So go through kind of what you've thought of, what we discussed, so that someone at home or watching this, either live, hopefully, or after this, can bring to Alan or another frame builder.
So pretty much my main thing has been, I'm short, and I never have enough standover on the bikes I get. The Crux was very like almost straight. My road bike was also like that, and the ones I have now. So what is it? The top tube?
Top tube, yeah.
Top tube. I need that lower to give me that breathing space. And also, I always have really small stems because of that. So even my like a regular redshift suspension stem that does take up quite a bit of space on the stem, is really hard to even get it fitted on there.
Oh, your seat post.
The seat post. I'm sorry. Yeah, because the space is also limited.
Right. So he's talking about wanting a lower top tube to show more seat post, to have more room.
Correct.
For the suspension, or the pseudo suspension stem that we've both been running.
Yes, pretty much. And I saw someone mention about the Fargo. The Fargo was a little too extreme for me. Like, I run it on 3-inch tires. That's probably why. But I don't want something that monster trucky. Because since I am, and I like to use it as a road bike, I like to just switch my tires and the stem and put a rigid carbon seat post and it be my road bike. So I still want it to be, snappy and all the other road bikey terms that are out there. But I just want it to fit my proportions, I guess. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And a few extra water bottle mounts here and there. I don't need all of the ones that are on my bike now, but I wish it had other ones in different places. So small things like that.
Yeah. And it's something that, especially with a smaller frame, that I've noticed, and even issues with my, running a bigger frame, water bottle placements, even some of that stuff. I almost mentioned like every review of, I wish there was either a third mount to really position things so you could fit frame bags and things accordingly that depend on what you're running, or if you are smaller or, bigger. So I think simple things like that I thought I noticed, but it's still a prevalent, especially when you have limited space in the frame bag or frame triangle, if you were trying to run a bag or anything like that. As far as for your experience, you've ridden a carbon road bike, an alloy with carbon fork cross bike, and now a steel frame bike with a carbon fork. Were you able to notice the difference?
I was right off the bat. Okay. Like, I ride pretty rough, maybe because my skills were rough.
No, Mario makes up for like full send and skill, the skill set isn't where his full send is at, but he'll commit and just do it. So he will
learn somehow.
Anyone who's going to join us this weekend for the pseudo DIY Duro ride, like there's going to be stuff that I walk down that Mario's going to be like, but he'll go and like, he'll probably get down there in one piece. But yeah, so no, I agree with that. But as far as
felt the steel a lot more confident on there. Okay. And it also maybe a mental thing. I'm not going to say I'm prone to crashing, but I do visit the ground quite often. So I was scared that I was going to pop my road bike, like my carbon bike, in half.
Mm-hmm. And then on the Poseidon with the aluminum frame, do you feel a difference ride quality up or downhill, as far as like, because you really have seen like very little of the spectrum. I've ridden a lot of bikes, so I can tell.
The geometry was a little bit different,
right?
Because I don't hit my toe now on this Surly, and I did on the Poseidon all the time. Mm-hmm. So I do feel descending wise, it's super, super nice.
Okay.
So I do like a little bit of room for my toe, and for the downhill part, obviously, because I'm still on the fence of dropper post on my gravel bike, since I don't know, like I'm still trying to define my own personal line between mountain bike and gravel. So, as long as it's a little bit slack, give me a little bit of confidence. That's all I need.
And then as far as last question for you is between the rear of the bike, because obviously you went from like aluminum to steel, descending, have you noticed because of the dampening quality that I feel in steel, does it feel like you have like softer landing, or that it has more compliance when negotiating more technical stuff?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not like hitting it so hard,
Like crashing into it?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's
All right.
not like suspension by any form, but it just doesn't feel as harsh when it's
Okay.
hitting the rocks and the trails. And
That's fair.
And on the same wheel sets, like switching from one frame to the other.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I balled out by, switched off.
Yeah, you buy new. Yeah,
components.
you get the same components and just switch
And,
frames out.
But it was definitely noticeable.
That's cool. I mean, that's a good comparison, because if you're using the same components going from frame to frame to frame, I mean, that really gives you the truest comparison of materials. And
Right.
I mean, man, carbon bikes, at Serrata, I saw several fail, and yeah, they're repairable and everything. But there's not like a crashability kind of rating to a carbon bike. Like you can't fall off the side of a mountain and like go find your bike and pick it up and go right away.
Which you've done.
Nice. I mean,
yeah,
you might dent a steel frame, but I mean, it's still going to get you home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think there definitely is the perks of doing that.
And the look, you just can't deny it. Just still looks so pretty. And part of bikes, in my opinion, is a visual thing. So it just looks so nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing for it. I always do appreciate Bill the Cat in the live chat. 21 likes. Let's squeeze some more appreciation for the content. Appreciate it, man. All right, so as far as that goes, I think I definitely want to lead into stuff that I'm going to be spitballing. Alan hasn't heard all of these things yet, so this is definitely full reaction to this and to see what's feasible. So I think the things that we've kind of seen, a lot of this, for anybody who didn't know or hasn't watched the videos, both of us did Grinduro last year. Didn't complete it, but we did a good chunk of it. And there was a really cool custom bike show kind of in the main hall with a lot of the sponsored parts from different companies that these frame builders used, which really had some cool stuff that are definitely inspiration for this. So first thing was for me is I have a industrial design background, and I really like that really seamless, clean look. I think steel can give you that. I think with doing the fillet braze especially, and that seamless, you don't see the welds or anything like that, and the smooth transitions. For me, it's going to be all integrated bags.
Yeah.
So in the main triangle, it's going to be, Russ, I think, coined it with the adventure nipples. And so it's just what I would like to do, and I probably will work with, hopefully, is Kai Venture bags again. They've been great to me and make quality products, is having it to where I could do either the top tube style frame bag, but all bolted in. So no straps. So doing, obviously, bolts underneath the top tube, maybe one in the head tube and one in the tall of the seat tube, just to basically have it to where it doesn't need anything. All the integrated ones that we've seen and been kind of researching, they at least have those front and rear seat tube straps. I'd love to not have that, just for aesthetics. Obviously, your standard allotment of top tube bolts and down tube bolts. We did the down tube bolts on my all-road bike, which at the time was like still a very new thing.
Use those all the time.
And I just wanted, if I did like GMR, one of the climbs that we have in our area during the summer, it's a 20-mile, like 4,500 feet section of climbing with no water. And when it's hot, there's also no shade because the sun's on the side that's facing you. So, it did come in handy where everybody else that I had either had to sacrifice a jersey pocket and food for a bottle, and so that was what really kind of inspired that. For bottle placement, it's again just the same thing of having the 3 bolts on the seat tube and down tube to place the seat tube one very low to run the full top tube bag. And then also for the ability where if I run a half frame bag that the bottle's still exposed on the seat tube to be able to pull it out for like a bike packing trip.
Yeah.
The fork we're going to use is going to be partnering with Cobalt. They're going to be supplying the fork. It's going to be the same one that's on my Warhawk. So it's going to have the 3-pack mounts. It will have the tire spacing that I'll get into what we're looking for. I would love to run, and I haven't seen this, or maybe I haven't looked at it enough. Alan, what do you think about doing 2 bottle cage bosses on the chain stays? Maybe not all the way by the axle, obviously, but maybe like a quarter way up. For one main reason would be 2 arrow shaped whiskey flasks, like right there for the, obviously the lower the turbulence.
Yeah.
But if you had to run water, obviously I wouldn't want it to rub into the wheel. Have you seen that, or would there be a possible issue because of how thin the tubing is there for that?
I'm not too worried about the tubing. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
that could be done as long as couldn't do it on the drive side, but probably one.
Okay.
Oh, are you saying towards the back, like 2/3 of the way back towards the dropout?
Right.
Certainly your chain would hit it on the drive side. So one
You think that
in there.
it'd be on the outside of the chainstay, like I wish I had my. Oh, I can't really see it there. But it would be. So for me, I thought it'd be a pedaling strike, like foot issue to hit it, but it's essentially on the outside of the chainstay. So your chain's obviously inside on the frame, so it'd be kind of on the outside, lower, third of it near the dropout.
I'd be more concerned with your heel hitting it.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah, the heel strike.
Yeah.
But if that wasn't an issue as far as clearance wise, if we had long enough chainstays or whatever else the case may be, as far as mounting and strength, again with the thinner tubing, is that something that would be possibly feasible?
Yeah, because people run internal cable routing right through chainstays all the time.
True.
And they have ports coming out.
Oh, sorry. I'm saying chainstay. I meant seat stay. My bad.
Oh,
totally.
Okay.
Yeah. I totally misspoke. Didn't even catch that.
That's all good. Yeah, as long as we don't have a super low mounting, attachment point for the seat stays, then I don't see why we would have much of an issue with that.
Sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think definitely the drop chain stays. He likes the look. I definitely think it added a lot of comfort to our previous build. So sorry for misspeaking. For everybody who'd listened to that, probably was trying to correct me. No, but it was the seat stays. The seat stays. Yeah, not the chains. That'd be real weird. Yeah, that'd be very weird. Sorry, I meant the seat stays. So basically, if everyone's picturing your bike frame, mount it up so that essentially you can run 2 water bottles, because I know people love racks, or especially rear racks for touring air with that. I'm a big fan of the seat packs, and that's what we've both run for bike packing, because it works with every frame. And you can buy a seat pack that will always work, where your rack you might have to change. So I think for me, I'd rather have water there, because I'm always going to run some seat bag of sorts, most likely. I do think I think it's the Aerofin or Aerofly, that it's that carbon tail fin. That's what it is. I think that thing's rad. But for me, I think I'd love to have extra water there, because when we go bike packing, our forks are loaded with other stuff, so we aren't able to carry extra water. So I think that'd be just an innovative space that I don't usually use, that people may, I haven't seen that. And again, or the dual whiskey carriers for the shorter rides,
and trying to avoid the backpack,
and trying to avoid the camelback or whatever else. Yeah. So I think, if you can fit, 2, it might be harder on your frame because you're smaller, but fine. If I could fit, 2 21 or 24 ounce bottles back there, that's, 40-ish ounces of extra water. That'd be huge, instead of having to carry a bladder, and then it'd free up a lot of space elsewhere, Yeah.
And not mounting it up high by the seat, improves your stability and all that.
Right.
So.
All the, having that, water is obviously super heavy. Having that as low as possible is also the thought process of having the weight over the axle, just like in a car, it's going to help with traction ideally. And so, because a gallon of water is like 8 pounds, I think. So, it does, add up, especially with everything else you got going on.
I'm definitely willing to look at that.
The advantage of not having to run something on there.
Right. Day. Yeah. Or just, hey, I just want to put water back there, whatever. Yeah. Or carry something else. Or for you, especially with when we, Alan, like when we run the Redshift, like a suspension post, we both can't run saddlebags because of how it works. And then also with people that want to run a dropper, issue. So I'm thinking too is, hey, if you can run one of those as a tool keg, or anything else in the bottle shape, that does add versatility. Even, hey man, if we got like a soda at the store and like want to bring it back to camp or whatever, and had an adjustable cage, I think that would definitely be cool. So next would be usually where you do granted, we're not doing rim brake, but your brake
The
bridge. Yeah. Filling that little triangle in and having you mill out a bottle opener into the triangle.
We could do bottle openers. I mean,
all right.
Yeah, man, there's a ton of ways to do those,
Okay.
There's like
Cool.
people do them on the chain stay, so you're not
Mhm.
like dripping stuff on brakes or whatnot, drivetrain,
Yeah. Well, it's obviously going to be the arrow spot for it. That's the
well,
the
yeah,
main
that's
thing.
true. Yeah, we're definitely
Yeah.
we don't want to lose that arrow on it when we got 40 ounces of water on it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think those are gonna be the big things. And then for me, a question to you. Obviously, I know the bike that you're working on in the back has the sliding dropouts.
Yeah.
How do you, as for me, for gravel, I think that can really, in my eyes, and the use for, and I'd love to hear your take on it and why you did it for your build, is, you're running a 35 road and a 2.1, 650, but the fork that we're going to be running on here can clear a 50C 700. It might clear a 2.0 exactly. I haven't tested that tire out on there yet, but in my head, having the slide and dropout to tuck that 35 to sharpen the handling for a road mode is what I like to call it. Versus, either a really stable ride for a 650 or just a tire clearance issue. Is that something you can either figure out in CAD, or how do you, handle that as far as if I told you, I mean, obviously this is all ballparking at this point. 650 by 2.1 is roughly the same as a 700 by 38.
Okay.
And then obviously if you're going up to a 700 by 50, you're looking at that's like a 29 or 2.0 ish. So as far as somebody who's interested in the sliding dropout option, which is on some frames out now, how would you compensate to give that optimization using that piece?
I mean, sliding dropouts, I really, again, coming from BMX, every BMX bike has a sliding rear dropout. It's not really the same as what we do on frames now, but just to have that adjustability to give that bike a little snappier handling when you're running your road setup, or extend it out and make that bike just carve the dirt real nice and smooth. That's so big. So what I'm doing with this hardtail build that I got going on here is these are from Paragon, and
Those ones I was talking about.
and they slide that entire length. So that bolt slides all the way back to there. That gives you I don't know, 20 millimeters of travel. So you got a lot of variability that you can really kind of fine tune how this frame exactly handles. And I think that slider dropouts are just, I don't know, I just think it's kind of a necessity.
What about for the chain? What happens to that? I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So as far as go ahead.
Your derailleur compensates for that. If you really had to go from one extreme to the other in that travel, sure, you could take one link out of there if you didn't want your derailleur slapping around too much. But usually you're going to go tighter rear end on the road, which is going to be smoother, right? So a little bit looser derailleur action isn't going to be a big deal, where on your longer distance gravel rides, you're going to stretch that out, and then you'll have a tighter sprung derailleur, and that'll keep that a little more friendly in the dirt.
I'm doing a video series that's going to be coming out on the channel soon. I just started it, or working on it. So I did one where I try to figure out how to make one chain work for two opposing gear ratios. So everyone who's watching this live, you'll get a little insight of what's coming on the channel. But I did a 40 front ring with a 9 to 42 rear for a road setup, because a 940 for everybody, that's roughly like a 4611, give or take, maybe like almost a 48 gear ratio wise. So it's and then I have the same chain works with a 32 front with a 9 to 50 rear.
That's cool.
And so I would think for the sliding, if it was me, I would say we would do, whatever system you're running, they're going to have their recommended chain cutting, method. And like I said, so I would slam it all the way back, do your, your gravel gear ratio, your whatever, and your biggest cassette, your 46 for you or a 50 for me, cut the chain that way. And then if you're going road, you could slam it forward and either do the same ratios like I was talking about, or you could put like a 42 or 44 on the front because you have more slack. So you could go even bigger and have a tighter ratio. So that would probably take a little bit of finesse. You kill a chain, you lose $30, whatever, get a $10 one. Yeah. So I think with 20 mil difference with the clutch, I think even if because I think even for my bike, I took it from a 950 and I had a 36 on there. I went down to a 32. It still worked in the 9. It was really slack, a little bit too much, but But that and 20 mil difference would still probably have more slack than a tooth change. So I think, it probably would.
So it would work.
It would. I think you might have to experiment for you and for anybody out there who's doing the same rear ratio. If you're really changing that front, you're probably going to have to do a chain unless, we cut it to your gravel ratio in the rear, slam it all the way forward, and you upsize enough to where it works. But it'd have to be an experiment. Worst case scenario, you do a second chain. Me, because I'm changing so much in the front and rear, I can compensate.
Yeah.
You like the same rear cassette, so that's where your front changes a lot. So the difference might have to be either tighter or you still run a second chain either way.
Okay.
So I think, that's definitely something I was interested in. And so as far as that goes, is the brake bridge attached to the sliding part on the non-drive side?
The brake bridge attached to the
the brake mount for the rear, the disc mount.
Yep. So coming back over the frame here, let's see, I'm trying to look at this and
there you go. Yeah.
Hey there.
Okay, cool. So it is flat mount as well.
Yeah. So there's cool. Exactly. So they just travel with the insert that bolts to the steel dropout part that gets brazed into the chainstays.
Cool.
So maybe that'll kind of
that's perfect.
Give it a clearer picture. So just flat mount. You can add spacers for larger rotors and whatnot. I believe that these are 180s. Being that I was building a hardtail, I figured I would go with 180. No, they are 160 actually.
Okay.
So I'll be adding spacers myself. Whoa, where's the camera? There we go. So I'll be adding spacers myself because I'll probably use like a 180 and a 20 whatever it is in the front.
Sure. Okay, cool. So let's dip into the chat a little bit. We've been having some good questions, so let me kind of backtrack here. A couple of these are for you, Alan. So let's start with let's see here. If I'm missing any questions, guys, we're going to do one more question and answer probably near the end of this. So Luke here. So bike sizing always has a range with height range and range of inseams. Which is more important, a good fit when they don't always match, or a smaller size? Okay. So Luke, from my experience with this, if you're completely unsure, search out a bike shop that has a professional fitter that's been certified. That's a big thing. There's a lot of shops that may fit you when you buy a new bike, but they're just going to eyeball kind of, maybe put your saddle height in the right rough range. For me, especially for all the geometry, because I fitted Mario and he was again an in-betweener like I am. There are some places that typically it's Retool is the kind of brand name for it. You can get a Retool fit where essentially you're on like a fit bike. You're not actually on a physical bike, and they will tell you based on the catalog that they have, if you're in between a size of what's the ideal bike size for you and model as well. So you might want a specialized Tarmac, which is their lightweight climbing racy bike, but you might, be more comfortable on their Roubaix because of the taller head tube and more relaxed geometry. They'll be able to give you that kind of information. I think overall height range and inseam is just a baseline number to get you an idea of what you need. Again, I'm very short inseam, so standover height to me, I don't really look for because I've been fitted and I know roughly what reach and stack that I need and rough top tube effective length. So for me, I don't want to get a frame and have to run a 120 plus, stem on there to make the top tube work and just to make the seat tube work. So for me, I'll sacrifice a little bit there. So it's definitely a balance. That's the really hard answer. is once you're actually professionally fitted and you know the real numbers that you needed, it changes the game. Because before I got fitted, I was riding a 54 because I needed the seat tube, and I thought that's what I did. And after getting fitted, like, no, you need all of a 56. And then I had lower seat height, which actually made my handlebar to saddle drop more comfortable. So I was more comfortable, and had a bike that, fit me better. I was happier. So it's definitely something to invest in and is worth the money, to be honest.
I would say, Luke, if I could give my 2 cents here, naturally this is a pre and post COVID thing, but I mean, get out there and ride some bikes. I mean, you just don't know until you ride a bike. Yeah. I mean, I went to a fat bike demo in Minneapolis, and here I grab a large, and on a surly Wednesday, the thing felt like I was cramped, and then I grab a large on a salsa, something or other, muckluck or something, and the large felt fine.
Sounds all right.
And then the surly ice cream truck was just a more racy frame, and an XL felt great. So, I mean, go and ride a bunch of bikes, Unfortunately, I don't know how we do that now. I mean, I just drove by a Trek Superstore the other day, and they had people out riding bikes. So I guess you can still do that, but you got to ride bikes. That's the only way to really to I don't know. That professional fit also, is a big way to get you like really dialed in, but ride a lot of bikes.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to help to give you an idea or a baseline if you don't have one already. Alex, apparently the Bomb Track Beyond Plus lineup, which I do like their stuff, has the seat stay mounted bottle bosses. Cool, maybe even doing like the anything cage, like the 3 would be cool, because then you could do like a Nalgene, I think, what is it, King Cage that makes that Nalgene kind of mini rack thing. That would be tight. So I think that'd be good to even think about going exploring that.
Wolftooth's got some cool stuff too.
Yeah, definitely. Here we go. Alan, thoughts on comeback frames with drop chainstays?
I mean, a drop chainstay just kind of gets your rear end tighter. I mean, you can get 415 millimeter rear end. So, I mean, my thoughts on that, if you want something real zippy, then hell yeah. I mean, that is a great way to do it. I'll mention BMX again. I'll try not to do the BMX card all the time, but I mean, a short frame, you can do more with it. You can point it exactly where you want it, because you don't have that distance from your crank rotation to the rear wheel being as long, and kind of, you're not waiting for that distance, I guess, to catch up with your body. It goes where you need it. And another reason why I am building this hardtail with sliding dropouts is because I don't really ride mountain bikes. I've got a fat bike, and that's kind of my only really go-to bike right now, just because of where I ride right now. But this thing, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to want a real short rear end. So I'm building this almost to like just clear a 2.6 tire. And if I can slam that and get an even fatter tire up in there, cool. I mean, I'm building the frame. It's for me. It's experimental. I don't have to worry about if someone doesn't like it or not, So I love short rear ends. Sorry, that was a long drawn out way to say that.
Very good.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I think, let's see, what's the max chainsaw difference one can do? So as far as the sliding drop, you're thinking roughly that's going to make an effective 20 mil roughly of difference?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if someone out there makes another chainstay dropout that's got longer travel on it that I don't know about, sure. Cool. But I mean, you're really just at the limitation of the design of that slider. I mean, right. I'm a CNC machinist, and I mean, I could just redesign something exactly like sure. that with 40 millimeters of travel. It'd look pretty goofy, and but I mean, yeah, we could make a pretty darn large. You'd be at the mercy of your derailleur and how much it can soak up, and how much you want to add to your chain every time you move it.
Right. Yeah. And then Luke also had another good question. So changes say more important than having a clutch derailleur. So no, Luke, that's the thing is the clutch in the derailleur is going to help out when running a sliding dropout 1x. It is going to compensate for when you suck it up and you have more chain slack. It's going to basically keep it taut so that ideally you don't have to change. If you were running the same ratio, I'd say, and you slid it all the way forward for a tighter, handling. Let's say, depending on the bike that you wanted, just for like feel wise, let's say you have the same wheel size and you ran it tucked. It's going to turn in a little bit. It's going to be a little more responsive. Let's say for, a longer, more endurance ride, like Dirty Kanza is something we've been talked about. You want a more stable bike for that because it's an all day, thing like that. So you might not need the technical turning. You just want the more, stable handling. You would then pull it all the way out. In that scenario, depending on your chain links and how you did it, you probably wouldn't need to change the chain. Or worst case scenario, if you slammed it forward, maybe bump the front ring up like 2 teeth. So they work in tandem. If you didn't have a clutch rear derailleur, you probably would have to change your chain every single time. Yeah. Maybe not like the middle position. Clutch.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no, yeah. So I think the clutch is really going to compensate a lot to help that actually work.
Yeah, and it keeps the chain from bouncing all over the place too.
Right.
I mean, if you've ever ridden like a classic road bike with down tube shifters, my God, every bump you hit, it's so annoying. And that honestly, old road bikes is why I didn't get into geared bikes until I was like 35. Because like old derailleurs just suck in my opinion. Like until clutches came out, there's going to be so many diehard people that are going to hate me for this, but like all that old classic stuff, to me, I just want nothing to do with it. Give me something with a clutch, give me something that is 1x, the sure. least moving parts, the least stuff that can go wrong for me is what's attractive. And really, so yeah, clutch derailleurs, probably didn't come out until 10-speed groups were current. And that's really
mountain only. Yeah. Mountain only had some clutches. Yeah. And then
that's really what got me on the geared bikes. Cause otherwise I had a track bike, and BMX bikes again. So, clutches.
No, I think, huge change. Yeah. Even now they're doing it in road. Not that we're getting into the news, but like SRAM ETAP for 11 speed, the group I just sold off the whole old bike. They just made an updated version of that rear derailleur that has that fluid clutch in it now.
Oh, that's great.
And it's just like, and so they're just like, for them, it was made sense for manufacturing because they're still making that 11 speed ETAP parts. But even they're adding it into that's just a dedicated road group. It clears a 32 at best, which for some people that's enough. For me, it's not. But yeah, it's like the technology is going everywhere.
Unless I had a 25 chain ring.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even that might be, I don't know. So, Bill made a cool comment. Yeah, it'd be definitely cool to tuck the tire. I think that's really where the sliding dropout really, again, I don't know if we're officially going to name it this, but the N-1, and I mentioned in my old videos, I loved Legos as a kid. I like changing stuff up all the time. That was a big thing for me. And we've gotten even you, and that's what kind of built the series of going from gravel mode to road mode is your bike's more dialed than mine is because his was the experiment. We got his figured out, and I'm like, okay, I'll take this and learn from it. But now you're not the most mechanically inclined.
I'm not.
But really he can now, at home, swap all of his stuff in 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
Yeah, max. And it's a completely different bike each time.
Yeah.
Which is freaking awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we've culminated and really enjoyed with doing this, and that's why we were really excited about doing this the series with you and building both of our bikes because I didn't think it was possible. I still think I would lack or miss something, on a traditional 2x setup for a road bike, but we did a Century ride on the gearing I mentioned before. We've done GMR, maybe not all of it because mechanicals with this guy, but it's been great. And I think, somebody, and I mentioned in my other video, just, I live in a studio. Mario has a nice house or a loft that you have a lot of space in a storage unit, but I'm very cramped on space. So for me, one bike and just hanging an extra wheel set and putting a little box of my road parts in a little box somewhere is so much easier then storing your, I mean, granted, your Fargo and your Midnight Special are very different, but if you, let's say, had your Fuji and your Midnight Special.
And also, you only like the dumb things like one toolkit. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah,
mean?
that not having to swap, have doubles of everything is kind of nice.
So convenient.
So, yeah, let's see here. What else we got here? Okay, so this is going to be for Alan because you have more tubing. Okay, so I'm not well-versed on the tubing echelon for Columbus. I know Reynolds only because as the numbers get bigger, it gets nicer. So that's all I know. So breakdown as far as, I know we did one tubing set as all Columbus Spirit for my bike. As far as tubing choice for somebody, how important is that? And what, can they expect? Is it ride quality difference? Is it weight? Is it both? How did you help somebody choose what they're looking for?
Sure. When you've got, you get a bike that fits, right? So we've talked about that quite a bit so far. So then the other thing is its ride characteristics, and that rear end length comes into play there. But we've talked about how that can be customizable by you. But so then tubing. So diameter, wall thickness, whether the tubing is heat treated or not. That Columbus Ciento or Cento or whatever it's called is a 100-year anniversary tubing package from Columbus, and they're the ones that have the bottom bracket like bulges in the center, and the top tube is very teardrop arrowy shaped.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna look it up while you're talking about it. So keep going.
Yeah. Okay. It's beautiful to look at. Probably, a tough tube set to probably fit together just in the mitering of the tubing. So the mitering is, well, back to this guy. Mitering is when the tube gets, where is the camera? Mitering is when the tube fits each other. So how that tube is cut in order to meet the other tube is what a miter is. Now, you change the shape of that tube and you change how your miter is going to be. Round to round is obviously the easiest because you just go with a hole saw and you cut the tube, maybe you file it up to make it look even prettier. There's that bottom bracket shell.
Yeah.
So, it'd be a challenge for an amateur like myself to really use that tube set. And I have a feeling that being that it's a real special limited edition kind of tube set, that it's probably really thin.
Oh, look at this. Oh, this is, oh man, the little bird cut out in the seat tube. Man, that's
little seat
I get
collar. It's sweet.
Yeah. Unfortunately, guys, everybody who's watching this, there is not a real pretty picture. It's literally just all technical pictures and CAD drawings. So sorry, I don't got more to show you. But that bottom bracket, I was like, what are you talking about? That is crazy. Yeah. I get it. Makes sense. Yeah, but
absolutely.
Wow.
It increases the area that you can make that really teardrop. So you figure if you were to take a round tube and then teardrop shape it, it gets taller. So then you've got to mate that to an opposing bottom bracket so that teardrop tube is taller. So now you got to make that bottom bracket a little bit fatter in order to make that miter not have, overlapping points on it. So, I mean, yeah, would I consider that tube set for a gravel bike? No, I would, that's like real nice road bike kind of stuff. Nice little dainty tires. You put little guys like that on it, that's not what we do, man.
Right. No,
dainty in my eyes is anything from like 28 down.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, yeah.
So the funny part is like any of like the when I started this channel, like it was all single speed, like fixed gear stuff. So it's funny that like we met so much later in like my cycling, like, background, but we both essentially started the same point. If I was, more handy, I probably would have ended up where we were trying to make something for myself. And I actually thought about trying to go to some of the schools for that at one point, like prior to college. It's like, oh man, I'll go. I forgot who did some kind of course. It was like in the Midwest or something like that. And it was stupid amounts of money, but you got like a custom frame out of it for yourself. I forgot who put it on, but I was like, oh,
Vatic is one of them.
yeah, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, oh, I could do that. And then I was like, asked my dad, like, so like, how hard is it for me to like have a welding setup in the garage? Like, so it was, yeah, definitely funny that it kind of culminated this way, but it's a very similar background. So yeah, as far as anything else, Mario, if you have any other questions or things you want to add to yours that I might have not mentioned, go for it.
Nothing much. I mean, as far as tubing, I have no idea any of that. So I'll let the professional.
So as far as tubing goes, so I know from a little bit that you told me, like Spirit, for whatever reason, you said is very light. It's very springy, but it's not super strong as far as like dense or whatever.
It's a good tube set because it is heat treated. So you figure even though it's thinner wall, it's in a tougher state due to the heat treatment. So my go-to, the name escapes me right now. The tubing I use for this mountain bike is a very typical Columbus mountain bike tube set, and it's a little burlier wall thickness. It's not heat treated, but the dent resistance is there due to the wall thickness, and it's just tough stuff. I mean, I built a track frame for this guy, Froggy in Atlanta.
Oh yeah,
and he is like a small guy. Like I don't think I ever made a head tube that was 80 millimeters tall, but
for everybody that's one. like 4 inches. Yeah. Like
right,
less than 4 inches. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he's strong as hell. So I knew that frame had to be pretty, Columbus Zona is the name of the tube set. And, so that he has a track bike built out of mountain bike tubing because I knew that he's also a messenger too. So I knew he was going to be just slamming this thing through streets, potholes, year round. And, so I just slightly overbuilt that frame, and, he still says that the ride quality is great. So,
yeah, I think that's what, if I'm not wrong, I believe that's what All City uses for a lot of their like higher end.
They use
bikes.
Reynolds.
Or they use Reynolds. I thought no, you know what? I think it's either them or Stinner. I think they do Zana on their down tubes. I know they do that. I know they do a mix. So for a gravel bike, would you do? I mean, in my head, that for a down tube and maybe your chain stays, and then everything else in Spirit. I think with that the strength and rigidity, and maybe a slight increase in stiffness.
Yeah, I think that's a mixed tube set is most likely what would happen on your bikes. Yeah, Spirit is great. Honestly, that top tube that you're looking at right here.
Yeah.
You hear that? That's a Spirit. That is a skinny ass little tube. And again, it's my bike. So if it breaks, it's my ass,
Sure.
So, I'm experimenting with this bike. I don't know mountain bikes, so I did go with a big 38 millimeter down tube, and that's Zona. That is just a straight wall tube from BFS, and it's just 35 mil wall. So that's just kind of standard because it's curved. So they kind of keep the wall thickness a little higher.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I wanted to try a Spirit top tube. So
sure. No,
so
I think my bike ride's great. Yeah. Like it really, I remember even when you like,
I know, I was blown away on that thing.
What your Surly is like 3140 chromoly. It's like,
yeah, they have their own kind of proprietary tube sets, which, I mean, I don't really know too much about them, but they're more on the
Ace. That's what it is.
More closer. Okay, yeah, more closer to a Zona tube set. It's just going to be uses Ace tubing on their CX bikes. Yeah, so it's it's great tubing. It's just not going to be the heat treated, real expensive high end stuff, and that's where they keep their price point lower with materials.
And so, and for anybody looking, so that I believe is a single butted tube set. Going to a double, what can you expect as far as like strength to weight or whatever? So it should be in theory lighter because it's double butted, correct? And then
yeah, it's lighter.
Okay.
You'll notice it if you kind of run your fingernails over the tube. You'll kind of hear a slight difference in the tone of the tube. They just take the tubing and draw it out in the middle, so they essentially stretch it, and that creates hardness and thinner wall. So that's where you kind of don't really lose much in the way of strength when you get those double butted tubes.
Yeah, I was telling him, I said, even with all the added however many bolts we're going to end up having in this frame, I think it's still going to save a good amount of weight over his Surly, even with the extra mounts,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then let's see, here we go.
So one question I had earlier, how do you know if like you pull it too much on the left side than on the right side with those little sliding things?
Oh, well, then your wheel will just be crooked. So you just look at the frame, look at the wheel spacing on either side of your dropout or chainstays.
Okay.
And then also, really if you can show it again, Alan, you've never ridden like track frame, so you might have not noticed this, Mario.
No.
So the little screws you see out of the end there, those are essentially like bump stops. So it will not pass that. So even if you left those bolts fully loose, the axle is going to bump against that and will not go farther forward.
Okay.
So if you set those, so what you would normally do is you'd center the wheel, and then you just do those. I usually just do them a little bit over finger tight against the axle. So in case something does come loose or rattle loose or slip, you're not going to move anything. Yeah. So unlike your Surly, which has your pseudo through axle, which has moved, that you have that screw as a fail safe essentially. So even if you lost,
so it's in there on the bottom and the top,
right?
Okay.
So even if both bolts were loose, it's not going to go past the like I said, the screw, because it's a bump stop.
Okay.
And then so you use that again if you were to pull the frame back, then you tighten that thing up till it hits the axle, give a little snug. Same thing with the track bike, because it's a horizontal dropout like that. You're pulling it for chain tension. If it were to slip because it's just bolt on, that was where I really liked frames that had that, because essentially it was a fail safe.
Yeah.
Because there was times back in the day, Alan, you probably had this, you skid hard enough, something happens or whatever, and now your wheel's so crooked, you're rubbing tire on the frame, and then you got to, try to recalculate there. So those are your fail safe in that scenario, if it were to do that.
Cool.
And then also too, what I used to do for fixed gear, which is different for gravel, but because you have your clutch, it's going to be pulling it forward, is I would just kind of tension the wheel using that to align it, because you can micro adjust it and then crank down on the 15 mil bolts.
Yeah.
With your clutch derailleur, it's going to want to keep pulling the wheel, so it's not going to be as easy. But yeah.
Yep.
So cool. And then another question for you, Alan. External cup integrated versus the slam set style headset. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm assuming that just means like, so if I can, and you can correct me, if you're going to make a custom bike, you should be able to slam it. Like that's just like, that's an added bonus. Okay. So I gave Alan like my absolute lowest like placement for my stem, and I told him, give me like, I think I told you like a centimeter or two above that, so I could be comfortable but look like slammed. Because if you're gonna go custom, like it's funny, should look
1 centimeter is like that.
Yeah, maybe 2. I don't know. I gave him my like max drop numbers, and I told you go like a 2 centimeters above or something like that. And I said, so it can be comfortable and I can be in the drops. I said all day. Still never done that. But that was like, if you're going to go custom, have it like look as badass as possible. And I think it does look better. If I was going to redo it, maybe saving a spacer or two under or below if you want to raise it or lower it. But realistically, you're going custom, set it to what you think you're going to use it for, and make it look as good as possible. But for me, we are going to go with what is the head tube called now? Because it's the straight like head tube, but you can taper it with a fork inside.
I mean, so you'd have like you'd have 1 1/8 inch at the top, and it's like 50 millimeters or something like that at the actual crown race. But it's just like a tapered steerer tube, really. And what you call 44 millimeter head tube is kind of the another catchword that you use for those big tapered tubes.
I think those are like the nice middle ground. Like I have integrated bearings into my Cobalt Warhawk right now, and it's nice. but being able to just like have those pressed in and not have to worry about any, frame material issues or anything like that. External was what I've always used for a long time. I've used integrated a lot, and you have the semi-integrated, like what you have your Surly is what we'd use for this. Okay. You do have to go get it like pressed in, or you can make yourself, an at-home DIY press. But yeah, I think that's kind of the middle ground of where you get the easy serviceability of just changing out full sealed bearings and getting the stiffness, difference compared to like a straight steer tube external cup.
Yeah, and I mean, to really answer that question, custom build, it's a custom build, dude. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, totally.
If you want to go with 1-inch steerer and external cups, do it.
That's what I did. I mean, so everybody asking, like, that's what I had. So, and I had a Ching Pro. That's what I called it. The
Chris
$12. Yeah, the Chris Ching is what I called it. I had it Sharpied on there for a while, but every time I got it serviced, they always wiped it off. But yeah, so it was like a $12 external bottom bracket. I have 4,700 miles on that frame. Things still butter. So yeah. Let's see. What's the difference in tubing? So Rick, we'll open this for everybody just to kind of chime in. For me, the bikes that I've ridden steel wise, I've ridden 4130 chromoly from different manufacturers. I've ridden, as one of the commenters corrected me, I believe Alex, Ace tubing from All City, because that's what my Nature Boy was. And then obviously Columbus Spirit. It's definitely different. 4130 in my end, it rides definitely a little more numb. It's a little more heavy set. So the bike doesn't have as much give to it. Not necessarily meaning it's less stiff with other tubings. It just, it feels kind of like a bigger mass that's moving. So there's less variety in how the bike feels. It just kind of feels like one kind of solid piece. Ace tubing, I think, is a nice middle ground. It feels very stiff for itself. It's not the lightest weight, tubing you're going to get. Spirit is very springy. With granted, mine was lugged, is what we made with Alan. So I know that has a little bit more flex than I've heard from a Philip Braze frame. But it definitely has a very different ride quality to where, like, it's almost like the frame kind of moves with the terrain. So it's got a kind of different, granted, I did a carbon fork on the front, so it's got a different kind of mind of its own when it's moving over stuff, to where it feels more, to me, it feels more natural. Like it's kind of gripping the road as you go. You've ridden, what was your, granted, it's your single speed. That's a very basic tube set, like steel bike, compared to your Surly. What's the difference in ride quality? Because you've ridden same size tire. Like, much of a difference?
Well, I don't know, because the other one's like a $200 bike. So I can't really
$200 steel versus like a Surly, like mid-level steel. So can you tell a difference in tube set?
I don't think I'm there yet.
Okay,
I don't
sure.
think I'm there yet. No.
What about you, Alan?
That fixed gear bike that you're riding, Mario, they got to build those to fit everything from 180 pounds to, well, shit, more than that. 250 or more. They gotta kind of prepare for a worst case scenario. So they just overspec the tubing, really. So, but I mean, how experienced do you have to be to notice a difference? I mean, it almost depends like what extreme you're going from. If you're going from that cheap fixed gear bike to something that's pretty high end, you're probably going to feel a difference, but you're not going to have the same components. So, I mean, man, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question. Like, at what point does your experience level have to be that dialed that you would feel a difference in tubing? Man, that's a tough one. How, your really sensitivity too. Like, I'm a geometry guy, and it's another reason why when I got into mountain bikes, I didn't bother with any kind of full suspension. I'm going straight to hardtail because, I like hearing those numbers. I like kind of feeling that a half a degree difference in head tube angle and a 2 millimeter difference in bottom bracket height, something that's there. Full suspension, it's very different. So, man, and I mean, I'm 42. I've been on bikes for 30 plus years. Could I experience the difference from one tube set to another? Really depends how the bike was even set up. If the bike is set up similar like what Mario's doing, then you're probably going to feel it almost regardless of what kind of experience you have.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to open up for just a few more minutes for any last questions. So please put them in the chat. If you've asked already and we've missed it, just keep putting it in the bottom there. I'm going to assume what Alex is asking as far as biggest clearance biggest clearance you can make. I'm assuming that's tire. Realistically, I'm pretty sure, Alan, you can make whatever fit. It's going to be the fork option that's going to be the limiting factor, I'd assume.
I mean, if we're staying within the gravel bike realm, then yeah, it's how long do you want that rear end?
Right.
What kind of fork can you afford? As some of the bigger tire clearance forks are going to be a little more expensive at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's changed, and I'm not paying attention to that. I don't know, but
sure.
Biggest tire you can run, I don't know, 50C maybe. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think if you definitely want the balanced tire clearance, anybody who's doing this, your fork is going to really dictate what the frame is going to need to hold, because it'd be kind of weird to have a bigger rear tire than a front. Usually it's the opposite if you're going to run a staggered setup. So again, I'm working with Cobalt on this build. So the front fork is going to officially clear a 700 by 50C and a 650 by 2.1. Now I've put a 2.2 in my bike basically since I've had it, with no tire clearance issues. In California, there's not a ton of mud, so I don't need a lot of mud clearance. So that is effectively the two max size tire sizes I want to work with this new Varco build, because the fork's going to dictate that. I want to have the same clearance front to rear. So if I want to stagger, I can, but that rear stagger would be kind of weird, and I'd assume the handling would be kind of funky at that point too.
Yeah.
So
you're going to change the angles of the frame too,
Right,
so you start
right.
bump up that front end, and you're going to have a little slacker head tube, which makes shorter reach and a more slack seat tube angle. So,
right.
Climbing is going to be affected. It's going to raise your bottom bracket,
right.
Too many differences in tire size is going to lead to slight oddities.
Right. And so to answer this comment, that's going to be hopefully on part 2 of this. We're going to be doing another live stream once we give Alan some more hard numbers and he has the time to obviously put a CAD model together for both of our bikes. Since we have the fork that we're going to be running, I'm waiting for the last few official numbers to give him so we can start that. But that was going to be, hopefully the preview will be in the next episode. So please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And let's keep going here just to finish out a few last ones.
While you're dialing that up, Blackie, this is my personal frame build here. This is my mountain bike hardtail. This isn't anything to do with these guys. I just kind of had it up here to kind of show a couple dropout options and stuff.
Okay, so let's do this. Maybe not a short answer, but Alan, any frame building tips?
Well, Sam, if you're looking to get into it, read as much as you can, man. There's lots of forums now. There's a Facebook frame building group. There's frame building tools group. There's a lot more information on it than there was, 7 or so years ago when I started playing with it myself. So I'd say don't believe what everyone says, and you don't have to have crazy fixturing and tooling to do it. My first, I don't know, 3 or 4 builds were done with 2 blocks and a piece of angle aluminum that I would just C-clamp to that to that angle, and make sure that the head tube and the seat tube were parallel, and I would take it to work, which was the flattest surface I had. Again, being a CNC machinist, I would just bolt it into a machine and use the machine to check points along the frame. So I'm kind of fortunate there, but I mean, it can be done as simple as, taking a decently cut 2x4 and marker lines on that and kind of just aligning it to the center lines of the frame. I mean, it can be done pretty easily. I really think that if you've got the drive to try to build a frame, yeah, you can get it done, man. Build with lugs your first time. Use lugs, and for a torch, just matte gas. It's a little mine's back there somewhere, but it's basically a little propane torch you can get for $40 at Home Depot. You don't have to buy a several $100 torch and tanks of oxy and acetylene. You know, it can really be done on the cheap. I mean, I highly recommend trying it. You know, braze a few things together, break them. You know, even buy Nova usually has some pretty cheap tube sets, and Nova Supply is a good resource for getting frame building materials. But you know, buy their cheapest tube set, braze it together. Don't ride this bike, try to break it. You know, like just really, man, get 2 tubes, braze them together, and break it. You know, see what it takes to do that. And if the tubing starts bending before your joint lets go, then you got a good enough skill to braze some lugs together and build a frame. I mean, there's lots of advice out there for geometry, lots of different schools of thought on that. So kind of read up and see what makes sense to you and go for it.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we might wrap this as one of the last questions here. Differences between fillet braces and TIG welding.
Really, you already said it. The looks. I mean, TIG welding melts the 2 pieces of tubing that you want to put together, and then introduces a third piece of metal to the equation. So you're kind of you're melting 3 pieces of metal into a little puddle, and they stick together, and that's a TIG weld. A fillet braze, you're taking 2 pieces of metal, putting them as close as you can together, and you're building the fillet itself. You're building a reinforcement around that joint. Okay. And that chemical process that involves heat, steel, and bronze, and flux to keep it from rusting, oxidizing, that just makes the tubes stay together. And there's been arguments to what's stronger. You're heating in a TIG weld, you're heating the tube more because you're actually making it melt, versus a fillet braze where you're not raising the steel quite up that hot, so you're not doing as much kind of heat damage to the tube. So some people argue that fillet brazing is stronger. Basically, both of those types of joints are stronger than the tube itself. So usually if someone hits a parked car or something like that, the frame usually doesn't separate at the TIG weld or at the fillet braze. It's usually buckling somewhere else. Okay. So they're both strong enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it there. It's been a lot of interesting questions. This went a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but hey, hopefully
my battery's still good.
All right. Yeah. No one's dropped out yet. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank Mario for coming over and discussing this again. For anybody who's joining late or just watching this, at this point, me and Mario are both working with Alan, to develop this frame set. We're loosely going to be let's call it a project name of N+1. It's like all the cool car names when they have the internal name. So if you're watching the live stream, the internal, and so we're basically looking to create our ultimate, ultra custom bike build with basically everything under the sun that we've both imagined and wanted. And when you're deep in a gravel trail and your mind's, elsewhere because you're just trying to make it up that climb, we've both come up with different things that we've thought about wanting to add. Be like, I wish the bike did this. Most of the time it's, I wish this had a motor. Yeah. We're trying to, want to discuss this and get a lot of feedback. We've also, I found a lot of information out about different bikes that have had certain features of this, or maybe hearing something you guys have thought of that, who knows, might make it to the eventual bike build. So this is why we're doing this. We're going to be doing another live stream on part 2, which again is going to be hopefully looking over the bike CAD model after we give Alan some more info to see, his thought process and a little bit more of behind the scenes on what makes that geometry based on our fit work well. And then what characteristics that me and Mario might want differently between the 2 bikes and how Alan is going to adjust those going forward. So please make sure to give this video a like if you watched it at this point or are watching it later on. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can follow Alan and myself on Instagram. Links in the description below, as well as both of his website and my Facebook page are in there. You can support the channel on Patreon with different perks at different tier levels. And I hope you guys like this content. We're going to be having more of this custom steel monster gravel bike build series with me and all of us together. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a good day, night, or whatever time it is where you live. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.